Hello and welcome back, guys. So I'll say I'm your journal partner. So that's what I'm going to read. So trends in age structure and aging population in Nepal. So age को structure कस्तो छ त त्यसपछि aging कस्तो भइराछ त नेपालको कन्डिसनमा है त्यसलाई हेर्दाखेरि so it's written by Kamala Bhandari and then Patan multiple campus TU Lalitpur Nepal हैन DUI is there, keyword age structure, distribution, elderly population, demographic dividend, right? And then abstract the study attempts to examine the trend in age structure of population and elderly population and its demographic and its geographic and demographic variation in respect to federal structured country based on the census data. So census data भनेपछि यो पक्कै पनि 2011 को सेन्ससको बेसिसमा हुनुपर्छ. The study found noticeable changes in age structure of the population in the country. The share of children is shrinking with growing proportion of older people aged 60 and above throughout the nation. More than half of the population falls in 15 to 59 category that confirms Nepal population is primarily young, which is known as youth bulge or demographic dividends, and will shift into the category of 60 and above in a few decades. Hence, the Nepal's population is gradually aging over the years. The proportion of children and old-aged populations was observed higher in mountain. Proportion of children and old-aged was observed higher in mountain, 38% and 8.8%, rural area 38, 8.8, and in the working age population was in hill region 58% and in urban area 59%, along with province 3. According to 2011's population census, the proportion of population aged 60 and above is 8.1%. Majority of them are in their 60s, 69%. That's a lot, and observed same in all regions of the country as measured by sex ratio in both rural and urban area. Female outnumber male, and also reported the expectation of life is higher for female than male in this age group of the country. Okay, and among the 77 districts, Gorkha 12.75% reported the highest, and Shajakot 5.12% reported the lowest proportion of the population being old. Okay, so it was basically published in 2020 11/27, so November 27. How to cite is there, blah blah, everything is there. All we need to do is let's just open the PDF. Okay, let's have a look. Received January 2020, revised March 2020, right? So Kamala Bhandari and Phil. So the study attempts to examine the trend in age structure of population and elderly population and its geographic and demographic variation in respect to what I'll do is I'll just turn my phone around so that it's just more better, right? Yeah, the study attempts to examine the trend in age structure of population and elderly population and its geography. I think I've already read this. Yeah, I've already read this. So introduction, let's go to introduction. So age structure of the population represents distribution of population by age or age group. That's the age structure. We know that, right? So for the purpose of easy understanding, easy comparison, it can be divided into three categories. So 0 to 14, 15 to 59, and 60 and above. So 0 to 14 is child aged population, 15 to 59 is working age, 60 and above is basically old age, right? So aging is understood in two ways: individual aging as a process of individual growing older or maturing, progressive changes related to the passes of time. It is multidimensional process of physical, psychological, and social change. Some diminutions of aging grow and expand over time, which others decline reaction time, and population and demographic aging as a process whereby older individuals become a proportionately larger share of the total population. Yep, that happens as the country progresses, kind of thing, right? So first world assembly on aging, 1982 Vienna, and second world assembly on aging 2002 Madrid had defined that 60 years old and above population is called oldest population. Similarly, United Nations Conference on Aging and Urbanization in 1991, the term elderly is defined as population age 60 and above. For international comparison, the population age 65 and above is categorized under the aging population. Okay, for comparison purposes, population aged above 65 and above is categorized under the aging population. So many of more developed countries classify a person as aged only when he or she reaches the age of 65. Best 2006. So government of Nepal classifies the age 60 years population as aged for the case of comparison in Nepal. Senior Citizen Act 2063 and Social Security Program Implementation Method 2065 clearly define that person age 60 and above are placed under elderly or old person. So population aging is defined as gradual increase in proportion of the population aging is basically a gradual increase in proportion of elderly population age 60 or older in the population, while the proportion of children and adolescent decrease, right? So dependent population rises. So it is natural outcome of demographic transition from high fertility and mortality to lower fertility and mortality, right? So as the country becomes more educated and prosperous, so there will be less fertility, thus less mortality as well, so when they have good health facilities and all. So an increase in the longevity of the individuals or an increase in the average length of life pertaining to a population result from improvement in the quality of the environment and from medical advances among other factors, right? Quality of the environment and medical advances among other factors. Very important point, quality of environment, right? Just captures everything. Worldwide population aging has been considered one of the most important demographic phenomena, that older people are increasing almost the entire world. Worldwide population aging has been considered as one of the most important demographic phenomena. Yep, that's happening all around the world, in the entire world, right? So it is dynamic process of demographic and socio-economic transformation, which reflects the increasing in the share of elderly population is 60 and over on the total population. According to the result of 2017 revision of UN, the world population reached nearly 7.6 billion in mid 2017. The world has added 1 billion people since 2005 and 2 billion since 1993. In 2017, an estimated 50.4% of the world was male and 49.6 was female. So out of which in 2017 9% of the global population was under 5, 26% was under the age of 15. So 9 plus 26, I think that's what will be considered. I don't know, let's see. So 13% was aged over 30, so 13%, right? And 2% was aged 80 or over. And then during 2010 to 2015, the average annual growth rate of global population aged 60 or over was almost 3 times, 3.33% that recorded for the total population. So in comparison to growth rate of total population, the annual growth rate of population age 60 or above was 3 times. That climbed from 2% per year during 2000 to 2005, Hence, population aging is a phenomenon that we can no longer ignore. UN 2017. Okay. So Nepal is in the phase of age structure transition with a large proportion of young working age population. The phase is also commonly known as phase of youth pulse or demographic dividends or the window of opportunity. This present phase and the consistent increment in the share of older age population over the years signify that the elderly population will continue to increase in the years to come. Data shows more than half of the population, 56.9, fall in the 15 to 59 years category, which confirms that the Nepali population is primarily young. The large proportion of young youth also indicates that the population is gradually aging over the years. In a few decades, the youth will shift into the category of 60 and above, thereby increasing proportion of aged population, thus the decreasing population of children and the increasing proportion of working age. Decreasing of children and working age increases, so does the elderly, right? And then the older population affirm that Nepal is undergoing age structure transition and the population is gradually aging. Limbu 2012. This change in the age structure of the population may be due to the Nepal's demographic situation that is characterized by maybe due to the Nepal's demographic situation that is characterized by declining mortality and a steady decline in fertility along with increasing life expectancy at birth. This study is devoted to highlight changing in the age structure of the population and assess the geographic and demographic variation of elderly population in Nepal. The term and elderly population and old age are used interchangeably throughout the paper. The main objective of the study is to examine the trends of age structure and aging population in Nepal. Specific objective of the study are to assess age distribution of the population by geographic region and to assess the distribution of elderly population and its demographic variations in significant in respect to vary in new structured sub-regions of the country. So based on federalism kind of thing, right? Significance: the finding of this study play a significant role to provide additional ideas and inputs about the changing pattern of age structure and geographic and demographic variations of aged population for individual researchers, students, social, legal, and political activists or advocates. The study will provide reference material for those who are interested about it. Furthermore, the finding of this study will be helpful to policymakers, planners of the government of Nepal to evaluate, revise, and implement elderly-related policies. So, changing pattern of age structure, geographic and demographic variation, right? Okay, geographic is that, demographic is that. Location based, that is basically age group based, right? Methodology, what was used: the paper follows the descriptive and exploratory research method based on the existing data sheet of 2011 national population census and other previous census data collected by CBS. The data from these sources are used to examine the trend in the age structure of the population and the elderly population and its geographic and demographic variation in respect to the new federal sub-region of the country. Furthermore, this paper is based on review of existing literature, mainly books, journals, articles, and reports, interpretation and analysis of the data, size and growth of Nepalese population. The population enumerated in 1961 was 9.4 million, increased to 23.1 million in 2001. 7, right? 2 crore 31, right? 2 crore 31 lakh was 94 lakh, right, in 1961. With its annual CAGR of more than 2% for 40 years. At the time of the latest census 2011, the population of Nepal stood at 26.4 million and has increased 14% during the past decade with an annual CAGR or annual growth rate, average annual growth rate, not compounded, okay, of 1.35%, far lower than 2.25 recorded in 2001 census, which may be due to a high volume of absentee population. It could be because of absentee population. Okay, so population size growth and broad age distribution of Nepal 1950 to 54, or what is that, 2011 to 2011. Okay, okay. hmm Okay, so it was 38.4, 39.9 of the total population, right? And so by the time we've reached 2011, what has happened? 34.9. What has happened to the aging population? Growth rate is all that. So aging population has basically increased, right? 15 to 59 has also increased. Population below 15 is decreased, right? Okay, table 1 shows the percentage distribution of population by three broad age categories with its average annual growth rate for the various censuses. Table illustrates among these age groups more than half of the population fall in 15 to 59 years categories, which confirms that is primarily young and Nepal is experiencing window of opportunity. The table also shows the trend of decreasing in the proportion of 0 to 14, right? So since the last decade, an increase in proportion and growing rate of working and old age population, so which may be due to declining fertility and overall improvement in the mortality. This structure affirms that Nepal is going through age transition and the population is gradually aging. Age distribution of population by ecological region. Nepal has distinct ecological regions. These are mountain, hills and Tarai. So table. So table 2 presents the data on percentage distribution of population by three broad age categories and their intercensal growth rate of these regions for the census 1981 to 2011. Okay, economical belt as well has been given. So what has happened in the mountain region? So basically the population of 0 to 14 has decreased over there as well. So it was 38 and then 41 and then 40, so it's a decreasing trend, right? 15 to 59, it's increasing trend, but not so much. The growth rate is very minuscule. So population is 60 and above is a bit significant kind of thing, right? So 5 to 7% and then 7 to 8.80%, right? So whereas in this it was just a 10% is kind of difference, right? So if you can see the growth rate as well, it's just 1.35, 1.2. So growth rate has decreased. But the population above 60's growth rate is very high. Similarly in hill, what has happened? Okay, significant decrease, right, in terms of population below 14, 38.22 only. Similarly old age over here also increased. Try what has happened over there as well. It's the same trend. So data of table 2 clearly shows that 1991 the proportion of child proportion under the age was decreasing with increasing in population aged 15 to 59, and the elderly population is 60 and above in all regions over the country. Of these three regions, mountain regions shares the higher proportion child population 38.22 and elderly population 8.80%. Higher proportion in terms of child as well, in terms of elderly as well, in terms of working age. Hills is greater, I think so, yeah. 57.93, yeah, that's it. Table 2 reveals the annual average annual growth rate. Old age population is always greater than the population growth rate and shows it was in increasing trend in the eco belts of the country over the years. So all belts, among them the speed of elderly growth rate was highest observed in Tarai region 4.3%, which is 4 times higher than the total population growth rate, and in mountain it was reported 3.8% compared with 0.54% of the total population growth rate. So that is like what, 3.8 is like, let's say 4, that means 8 times. So he'll accounted 3.3% of the 3.3% of the in 2011, so which is 3 times higher than the total population growth rate. 3.3, which is basically 3 times, yeah. So all of these indicators show elderly population is growing faster in the country. Age distribution of population by provincial and rural urban residents. The analysis of this section is devoted to the new structure of the country, that is 293 municipalities such as urban areas, 460 rural municipalities, and blah blah states of the country, and shows the data on the percentage distribution of the population of these areas. So we have that data 50 0 to 14 15 million, and then percentage of population of the total population, right? So this is on 2011. Okay, growth rate is also given. Urban is that, rural is that, so that should be 64 and 36, that should be 100%. So whereas in terms of province level, what has happened, so province, what is that man spelling? So 17 point thingy, so where is the population highest? It's in province number 3, right? Lowest is in province 6. Growth rate there is very high as well. Population above 60 and above is very high in province 6. Lowest is province 4. Okay, so above data shows the proportion of population living in urban areas is higher, 63.2%, rather than in rural areas, 36.8%, which is reverse than previous census, probably due to the reason that more rural areas are recently declared as municipalities, okay, and have been added in the urban population and inflow of rural population to urban centers. Among the 7 provinces, so province number 3 is the largest, which constitute 20.9% of the total population, with the higher average annual growth rate of population of 1.9%, followed by state 2 20.4% with annual growth rate of 1.6%, and the smallest is province 6 of 5.9% with annual average growth rate of 1.3%, followed by state 4 9% during 2011 to 2011 decade. 27 districts of the country had negative population growth rate, and in the province 4 80% of the district experienced negative population growth rate. Okay, is that so? So since it is at province 4 only, so many districts are there, so this should be the average number, right? That's why. So some of them might have experienced negative things, so that the average is basically 0 point something, right? So minus figures must have brought down the aggregate towards downward trajectory, right? So data of the table. Okay, so data of the table 3 shows the wide variation in proportion of these 3 broad age group of the population and the growth rate of old age population by rural urban residents and 7 states of the country. Large share of children and elderly population was observed in rural areas. A large share of children and elderly, okay, and then large share of child and elderly population was observed in rural areas, and then working age population in urban areas, which may be due to the migration of young people from rural to urban areas. Of the 7 provinces, it is noted that highest proportion of working age 62.9 and old age. 9.3% was observed in province 3, followed by province 1, 58.5 and 8.8% respectively, which is higher than the last level, and lowest in province 6, with the highest proportion of population 0 to 14, right? 41.6%. So table 3 also presents that all province average annual growth rate of elderly population are greater than the total population growth rate. So all provinces average annual growth rate of elderly population is greater than the total population growth rate, right? Highest elderly population growth rate is observed in province 6, that is almost 7 times higher than the total population growth rate, followed by province 7, 4.3%, and 3, 3.9, and lowest but higher than total population growth rate was observed in province 4, 2.7%. It indicates the age structure of the population is in favor of elderly population is 60 and above in Nepal. Distribution of elderly population by sex. So this section tries to analyze the situation in proportion of elderly population by sex and life expectancy for 60 and above population for different sub-regions of the country. Sex ratio is used to explain the sex variation instead of percentage instead of percentage, right? So this to this many kind of thing. So proportion of elderly population and life expectancy by sex in Nepal. So basically 2011, so areas, mountain, hill, tarai, and then proportion of population aged 60 and above is this. Sex ratio of population aged 60 and above is 93, 92, 104, 97, 99. All these things are there. Male is this much. All these figures are there. So of the elderly population, the proportion was observed higher in mountain region and then in other region, followed by hills. As in case of sex ratio, data reflects elderly females outnumber the males in two regions except Tarai. That is, male outnumber the females, right? So data also reveal elderly female live longer than male. Yep, they live longer than male, and then the probability of surviving for woman is higher than male in all regions of the country. Similarly, the percentage of elderly population observed higher in rural 8.8% than in urban area. Rural there is higher old age people, okay, as measured by sex ratio. In both rural and urban area, female outnumber male, and also reported the expectancy of life is higher for female than male in this age group of the country, as well as the proportion of the elderly population is high in province 3 with high expectancy ratio for the population above. Yeah, that's correct. Hill, right? Or we are comparing it province level, so 16.4, okay. It's comparatively with in line with province 4 and province 1. The female is good as well. So it ranges, the proportion of population is high in province 3 for 60 plus thingy, and in province 6 it's the lowest life expectancy, right, for people age 60 and above. So it ranges from 3.31% in province 6 to 9.26% in province 3. In case of sex ratio, data clearly shows except province 1, 2 and 5 in the remaining area, the total elderly population outnumbered the male. Yeah, 1, 2 and 5. In the remaining area, female basically outnumber the male, indicates that lower mortality in female population and expectation of life of female is higher than male in all state of Nepal. Distribution of elderly population by age groups in Nepal. So distribution of elderly population by age group in Nepal, right? Okay, for easily understood and to make comparable, elderly people can be divided into three broad age groups and defined as the young old, which indicates those between 60 and 69 of age, the old, which indicates those between 70 to 79, and 80 and above, right? Oldest old. The percentage of old aged people by three broad areas at national level with three ecological belt and rural urban residents and province for the 2011 is as follows, right? 5.3, and then after that 2.6, that is how much? 7.9, 0.9, so that means 7.9 and 0.9, 8.8. Yeah, that's all right. So sex ratio is also there. Okay, so even if we dissect that the older population, we said like it's greater in mountain region, right? So if we have a look over here, so the percentage of aged 60 and above is basically 5.3, 70 to 79 is 2.6, and 80 and above is 0.9, right? So even though there is greater number of people in people who are aged uh, is 60 and above in compared to other belt of the country, mountain region has basically people who are just between 60 and 70 bracket. Okay, that is higher over there. I think that's what the writer might talk about now. So data clearly indicates that with the increase in decrease and decreasing in the size of population of the total older population, majority of them are in their 60s. That is exactly correct, right? Even if we look over here, like the people in the 60s bracket is 60 to 70 bracket is very high. Similarly, the people aged 70 to 79%, 79 constitute 29.3% of the 100%, right? And the remaining 80 and over hold 9.9%, which is expected in the view of recent history of aging in Nepal. So among these three broad age groups of elderly, except for group age 70 to 79, what has happened? So what is the sex ratio? 19 and 96 and then 92, so 100 is pretty good. So rest of the, except for 70 to 79, in the rest of the two other groups, female outnumber male, indicating continuation of excess female over male mortality throughout the lifespan. Similarly, for the age group 60 to 69, except for the reason the state 2 and 1, there what is there? It had lower sex ratio, which means female outnumber the male, right? State 2 and state for the reason the state 2 and 1, 2 and 1, I think the sex ratio is okay, it's greater. So district having the highest and lowest proportion of elderly population. So in the new structure country, Nepal is divided into 77 districts. Data are presented 10 by 10 districts having the highest and lowest population, lowest percentage of age population in the country as follows. So percentage of population 60 and above, right? Having the highest number of elderly population 60 and above. So Gorkha, Longzug, Semza, Mustang, Ramechap, Tulakha, Parbat, Magdi, Sindhu, Palchok, Gulmi, right? So similarly, having the lowest percentage of elderly population 60 and above, Chajakot, Chumla, Rukum, Tolpa, Then comes Kathmandu, okay, Kalikot, Salyan, Surkhet, Parsa, Dailek. So table 6 shows the highest proportion of elderly population for 10 districts with high life expectancy at birth. In districts including Gorkha 12.75, 12.75, 12.64, Lomjung, Sangja 12.24 reported the highest proportion of elderly population, and remaining other 7 districts had the same percentage, right? Parbat had the highest life expectancy, followed by Gulmi and Sangja. Conclusion: the study is about to assess the trend in the age structure of, I don't know if this sentence is correct, it's not grammatically correct. I think this sentence, the study is about to assess. Why do you need to justify what the study is? The study has already been done, so now it's your conclusion, right? To assess the trend in age structure of population and elderly population with its variation in respect to new federal blah blah blah, on the based on 2011 census data from CBS, right? The result of the study shows noticeable changes in age structure of the population in the country, which shows that the share of children is shrinking and older person continue to grow. The share of children is shrinking, continue to grow. Okay, the proportion and the average annual growth rate of population below 15 years was decreasing over the years since 1991 and 2011. So the proportion and annual average annual growth rate of population below 15 was decreasing over the years since 1991 and 2011, with increasing in proportion and of 60s. I think that's what he's going to talk about. And growth rate of population is 59 to 50 to 59 and 60 and above. The proportion is also, size is also increased, the growth rate is also increased, right? So of the total population, more than half of the population falls in 50 to 59, which is 57%. That suggested is way up experiencing a window of opportunity known as population dividend. The growth rate for elderly population is always more than the total population growth rate in Nepal. The structure affirms that Nepal is undergoing age transition, where the population is gradually aging. Coming years. I don't know what that is. This affirms that Nepal is ongoing and the population will be. So you could have said will be, right? That could have been better. The large percentage of senior people, 8.8% of the total population, 8.80% of the total age groups, and child aged groups, 38.22, are living in the mountain belt, and 8.8% of the old age groups and children aged groups, 38.22%, are living in the mountain area, and working population is 58% in hill region, and the highest proportion of working age and old age was observed in province 3, and higher percentage of population below 0 to 14 was observed in province 6. That is correct. And the proportion of aged population is 60 and above is 8.1%, increased from 5.2% in the 1961. This indicates the aged population is rising steadily in Nepal. Of the total elderly population in 2011, majority of them are in their age group, which is 60 point something, right? So 61%, followed by this thing 70 to 79 is 29%, 80 and above is 9%. The scenario of age variation was observed in all sub-regions of the country. This is expected in view of recent history of aging in Nepal. Data on sex ratio of older population reveals female outnumber male almost in all regions except Tarai, and all ages except 70 to 79 of the country, and life expectancy at age 60 also reveal female live longer than male. And then of the 77 district, Gorkha, Lamjung, Sangja reported the highest proportion of elderly population, and Jajakot, Jumla, Rukum, Dolpa reported lowest proportion of their population being old. Hence, from the above explanation, the age structure of the country is expected to change significantly over the next decades age structure of the population is in favor of elderly population aged 60 and above, and it indicates the starting of aging dynamics in Nepal, which will have adverse effect on social structure and economy in the long run. So these are the references used, right? So oopsie, why did I close it? Why did I should have just turned the screen right. Okay, so that was it for today, guys. So the references that they used, we can definitely have a look at it. I will put up a link in the description as well for this particular article. Go and have a look, enjoy it, take care, bye bye.